Ah! No, no, no. R.I.P. Oops. Hello, welcome to my August reading wrap-up. I hope you liked the little bit of a scene change. I did get the van finished, and I am using the lighting I installed, which makes me feel really cool, to be honest. You can't see it right now, but they're on a dimmer and it's LED strips, and it really just makes this space feel super cozy, so I hope you get that vibe that I was going for. So I don't think you can see, yeah you can. So this far right shelf is more of drawing. I have 2 anatomy books for drawing here, the official character books for Bleach, and Kagurabachi, which is one of my favorite mangas to read right now. And this, I don't think I've mentioned yet, is my 5-star shelf, so anything that gets a 5-star for me and I think I will be rereading in the near future, or it's just that good, will be on this shelf. And anything is at risk of getting rotated out as I keep on reading. I don't want to say I'm stingy with 5 stars, but I just have... It's just such a difference between 5 stars for me, so I don't know how often this is actually going to get updated. Last month I did ask one of my younger sisters to give me some fiction recommendations because I'm trying to broaden the genres that I read. I want to be well read, I guess is a good term for it. That being said, I also read a few good manga series that I love a lot. And overall, I did have a pretty good month, but the way that I ended, I'm currently in a slump. So, let me explain. We are going to start with regular novels first. Manga will be pushed to the side. I know it's a big stack, but just hear me out when we get there. So to start, my younger sister recommended me Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse 5, and this encompasses a story about Billy Pilgrim, who shares his time in the infamous bombing of Dresden, and this is satirical. I know 100% this is satire, it's dark. I love the prose, the writing style in this. However, I did find myself getting annoyed, and it wasn't at the story, it's how right that this is. If you've never had any affiliation with the military at all, and for those of you who do not know, I enlisted out of high school, went to the Marine Corps, served and deployed, and then I got out. What was getting me annoyed is how accurate this is. And I know that's like the point of satire, but it had me just sitting here comparing my experiences to some of the stuff in the book. And while it wasn't a bombing in Dresden, it's just there's little things that you see in here that are like, wow. The fact that this is satire and it's supposed to be laughable, but it's real, is kind of crazy. For example, again, if you've never been in this kind of environment, when you have someone who is your superiors when you're in, you tend to look up to and you want to emulate who they are. And a lot of times, especially in infantry units or any kind of grunt work, in my opinion, there's a lot of people, especially new, younger ranking military members, they look up to the people who have faded camis, who seem really agitated, just have this air about them that it's kind of hard to put into words, but they're called salty. Like, when you talk about these kind of people, they're called salty. They have the faded camis, they have attitude. Normally they have lip in when they walking around stuff. They tend to be like kind of jaded, and they have black bracelets. And a lot of the times throughout this book, when people die, so it goes, it's like my mind consistently went to this one poem that shows up every Memorial Day, and it's called The Black Bracelet. And it's about these younger military members who are chasing to be their superiors who are salty, and they just want to be like them. They want to have the attitude, they want the faded camis, they want the bracelet, but then they're not thinking about what that actually means and how much actually goes into wearing a bracelet, or not like goes into it, but the amount that you have to lose is not worth it, but it's something that someone chases, and I think that's why I was getting annoyed with it. But I really, really like this book. I would definitely recommend this to all of my military friends for sure. Outside of the military, I think it depends on what you do like to read. My younger sister was never in the military, but we do have some people in the military in our family, including myself. And I don't know, I feel like people can just appreciate this. I know I said it annoyed me, but it was annoying in a good way just to read about. One more thing I will say about this before I move on to the next book is the way that humanization and dehumanization is talked in here through symbolism, I think is very strong, very eye-opening, and it's one of those books that just make you sit there and you're like, wow. So I would absolutely recommend this. I'm very happy that I read this. The second recommendation my sister had for me was No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. And I really, really liked it. And I mean this in the best way possible. This book is very draining. And I didn't understand why until a few days after I finished it. This is supposed to be, I looked into this. This is supposed to be somewhat of an autobiography before the author, unfortunately, committed suicide. There's certain things that happen in this book that follow his life very closely, which is why it's considered almost an autobiography. And when you read it, you'll understand why that's so heavy and depressing. While I was reading this, I was also, when I was working like 14, 15 hours on the van in this heat wave on the East Coast, and I would pick this up and only be able to read maybe like a few pages. And I was more tired after I started reading this than before I was. And I couldn't understand why until I really thought about it. This is just depressing. It's heavy. Our main character in this doesn't relate to humans at all. He feels a large disconnect. You think that he lacks empathy, and it shows here and there that he may, in fact, be empathetic, but then you're pulled back into his characterization and you're really not sure. He basically pretends to be someone that he's not, and he's hiding himself, and that adds to his anxiety because there's certain people in the story that he feels like sees through this persona that he creates, and because they could see through it, they could see his real self. And it just goes into ways that humans interact, think about each other. I would say this is generally a more negative viewpoint for sure on interactions with people and who's a good person, but I enjoyed this. Like I said, it was draining, but I wouldn't say this would be the first thing that I recommend to anybody wanting to get into a new genre or fiction just because of how heavy it is. This was my introduction to his work, and because of this, I think I'm more interested in it just to see what else he's written about, because the perspective in here is really unique compared to what I have been reading. But I think this is definitely for like a specific group of people. The last fiction book that I read was not originally on my TBR for this month, but it was also $3 at a used book sale. Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. It was brought to my attention when I posted about this on Instagram that a lot of people have read this in middle and high school. I don't remember that being a choice for anywhere in my classes. My memory is also really shitty, thank you TBI, but I don't remember ever seeing this or hearing about it. And it's also a shame. However, I think I appreciate this book more because I read it when I was older and I understand more things about being an adult and being in the real world. So basically, in this book, if you've never heard of it, our main character, Guy Montag, is a fireman, but in this dystopian reality, firemen actually burn houses down in order to get rid of any illegal materials such as media or books. The houses are constructed to stay standing so they could still be used, but if anything in your house gets burned by firemen, you are sent straight to jail after. In the very beginning, it's described in detail how much Guy loves setting fire, like doing his job. But he gets asked a very simple question by a centric character to society standards, and all she asks him is, "Are you happy?" And the more that he thinks about this question, he realizes he's not. And you follow him, basically, it's like he's waking up and realizing he's in a simulation and he doesn't know what to do about it, but he wants to be able to think for himself, to feel for himself and disconnect. And he realizes he wants to do something about the wrongdoings that are currently going on. In this reality, the TV, anything that is media is controlled, and I think it really harps on whoever controls the media controls the mind, because whatever is shown on TV, the families, whatever is shown to the person watching, it completely disengages people with reality to the point where there are wars going on that could be the next town over, but people will hear about it and not care because it could never be me. Desensitized. They're very, very desensitized. They're very desensitized in this to anything that could remotely be negative. Unless it's someone that has books, then people get very scared. I think everybody should read this at least once because it's that prominent and it shows just how important being able to think freely and having access to media and different thoughts are so important. There's actually a quote by Voltaire I think I screenshotted. Let me... So there were two quotes that I read recently that made me think of this book, and one is, "Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities" by Voltaire. And the second is, "The further society drifts from truth, the more it will hate those who speak it," George Orwell. And I think that emulates this book really well because people speak their own truth in literature, and the easiest way to take away that aspect of lines of thinking and hope in general is to get rid of this. If everything is passed down on word of mouth, but you make it illegal to even be speaking about this, it's going to get lost and you have a better chance of controlling people and controlling narrative. Again, I think everybody should read this at least once. So I did read the series Shadow and Bone. It was my introduction to the Grishaverse. My friends suggested to me, instead of starting Six of Crows when I was on chapter 1, was to shift into the trilogy first so I get used to the storyline. I thought it was different, it caught my attention, and I was curious enough to pick up book 2. Book 2 was Siege and Storm, and this is kind of where I had an issue with the series. I just felt like the pacing was so back and forth where nothing was happening, and then all of a sudden things were just there to progress the plot, or there wasn't anything to progress the plot, it just kind of shifted and you were in a different situation altogether without much change. Like, there was a lot of times that I didn't feel like there was any kind of build up and you just flipped it. And the same thing with book 3. I think, again, this is like a personal thing, but I'm not going to spoil, but the way that the series ended is one of the things I absolutely despise when it happens to the characters, and it has to be done, I think, a certain way for me to appreciate it, but this wasn't one of the ones, and I genuinely normally don't like series that end like this, so it's kind of unfair. But for me, it didn't click. Like, genuinely, and I hate to say this, I finished the series and I was like, well, damn. Because I did have interest. Because the pacing was so weird, I also felt like you didn't get as much depth from some of the characters that I wanted. I will say, though, I will be continuing Six of Crows, but as far as, like, recommending it, I don't think anyone really needs to read past book 1 to get an introduction to the Grishaverse, but I will update on this after I finish Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. You might not even have to start there at all. It was good. I rated it, I think, 3 stars across the board, which is good for me. Like, I enjoyed it. I just didn't really like the ending. And I'm not going to knock a book because what I wanted to happen didn't, or it just ended in a way I didn't expect. I don't do that. I'm lying. I'm glad I checked. I did a reread of Divergent and Insurgent, and I still really like the series. I just think I enjoyed them more when I was younger. Maybe it's because I already knew what was going to happen, and I also seen the movies for them, but I liked Divergent more than I liked Insurgent, and I still need to reread book 3. I just haven't found it yet. I got the first 2 at used bookstores, so that is why I had them. But I do think I enjoyed the stories more when I was younger, but I still liked them today. It's just not one of my favorite series as an adult, if that makes sense. Still love it. It was just a little different, if you know what I'm trying to say. Okay, moving on to manga, and I know this is a big stack. It's actually supposed to be bigger, and I am going to start with, I don't know if I could pick between the two. I have 2 favorites, and when I say 2, one is a whole series and the other is a continued series that I'm reading. But my sister, again, Jolie, recommended that I read Vagabond, and she let me borrow volumes 1 through 12, and this is probably one of the best written manga series I have ever read. I will say this before you look into it, which I didn't know going in. This has been in a hiatus since 2015, which is so unfortunate because the storytelling in this is amazing. The character development is so good. wish I could see the ending. And you follow 3 different storylines. What is this at? 19? Damn, my battery's dying so quick. So you start the series with Takehiko, and you get these watercolor pictures throughout every single volume, and they're just so pretty. The artwork in this is insane. It's another reason why I like it, because the attention to detail to everything. So you're following the main character Takehiko, and he's chasing this title called Being Invincible Under the Sun, and a large part of that is because his dad held the title, and him and his dad do not have a good relationship, and he wants to be strong. So him and his best friend end up going to the war when they're old enough. And after the war, Takehiko eventually goes around to other Ronin, very famous swordsmen, and they challenges them to a fight to the death, to really just assess his strength. And you follow his character growth as he continues to do this and grows. The character development in this is so, so good, and I genuinely wish more people talked about this series. I do think people don't read this because it's 12 volumes to not have an ending, but even if I found out that this was in a hiatus, I probably would go into it reading still. This is just so beautifully done. Let me show you another. Like, the art is ridiculous. Because the art is so good, this is one of the series that's probably not likely to be animated because it would be a lot of work to get everything right. And if the art style is not consistent, I do think, me included, would be disappointed in how this story goes. I absolutely recommend this wholeheartedly. Such a good series. Another great recommendation by my sister. The last recommendation I did get from her this month was to read Berserk, and I read the Deluxe Volume 1, and I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued. I will definitely be continuing the series. I can't wait to see more of the beef between Guts and Griffith. I just haven't picked up the next volumes yet, but I will definitely still be continuing this. I did pick up The Summer Hikaru Died, and I want to say this is horror? I think it's horror. But basically, Yoshiki's friend Hikaru dies on a mountainside, and when Hikaru comes back, he immediately knows that that is not his friend. Something has taken over his friend's body, and he knows everything about Hikaru, but he is not, there's enough difference that his best friend is able to pick up on this is not who he knew before. And it's pretty cool. I genuinely enjoy it. Honestly, I don't know how to explain it without giving anything away, because this is kind of one of the ones you just have to go into. I did actually finish volume 2 tomorrow, and I'm definitely going to be continuing this. I just find this really interesting, and I think because I know this is interesting, I can't compare them because I haven't seen them, but I definitely think I'm going to like Parasite, and I know I'm going to like Monster, if my ideas about what those are correct. So I would still recommend this. The only issue I had with this is it was in under H, so originally I could not find the volumes for these in the one bookstore that I went to. The Summer Hikaru Died was under H. I couldn't process it. I wasn't the one who found it, but I did eventually obviously get it. My second favorite for a manga this month was volume 4 of Kagurabachi. This has just quickly became one of my favorites. I absolutely love this series so much. I actually have volumes 1 through 3 right here, and this would be 4. Volume 5 is being translated and released in November, and I need time to come faster because I liked it that much. So if you haven't heard of this, it is about our main character Chihiro, who is a swordsman, apprentice, forger of his dad. They make swords. I forget the word for it if swordsmith was wrong. And his dad previously had made 6 enchanted blades that helped end a war, and he collected them back and he stores them and keeps them safe inside his house. And very quickly into volume 1, his dad is murdered in front of him, and you immediately go into a revenge arc. He has a vendetta, the swords are stolen, and based on the values that his dad has instilled in him, Chihiro knows that he needs to get those blades back at any cost. One of the things that made me appreciate this series from the very beginning is the side characters were important and they were developed, and there wasn't a lot of people introduced. I understand like there has to be sometimes be side characters who don't really move the plot along, that's fine, like NPC all you want, I don't care. But where I get kind of iffy on it is if the character only exists to support one thing that's happening with the main character, and that is not the case with this, and I enjoyed it so much. I'm not going to get super into it because I think finding out as you go is really cool, but the magic system with the blades is amazing. If you like anything like Bleach or even Demon Slayer, I think you would really like this just based on the swordsmanship and the magic that goes into it. The development in this one specifically for some of the characters was so good. I'm probably going to be rereading this next month because I just liked it a lot, and I want to keep it fresh in my mind going up into November because I liked it, and I'll probably be using this for drawing references too. Another thing I like about this story is the fight scenes are easy to follow. They're drawn very well, and it's not super blurry. I don't know if that makes sense. I've seen some where it's just hard to picture what's going on, but I really enjoyed it. I'm not gonna put that away. I don't have them on me, but I did read volumes, I think it was 2 through 4 for Tokyo Ghoul. This is one of my favorite animes. Volume 7 specifically is on my 5-star shelf. I think if you like the anime, you should definitely read it because in my opinion, it's darker and it just goes into more detail. Like the actual hate that you get. For example, if you've watched Tokyo Ghoul, right? You know Eamon, like, hates ghouls, but he, in the manga, he hates ghouls. I don't know, there's a difference that had me like, well, damn, I knew this, but I didn't know it was like that kind of thing. So that's a 5-star series for me for sure. Tokyo Ghoul is in my top 5. I just love the series so much. The last thing that I did read enough of is the Player's Handbook for Dungeons and Dragons. I'm delving into kind of much more nerdy things here, but in the summer I did read I think it's considered a lit RPG, but I know it's Dungeons and Dragons inspired. It's called The Deaths of Vanoff by Brady, and it was just a really fun read, and it brought in character builds from this, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. It was fun, and I was like, oh, maybe this is something that I can consider, and I talked to some of my friends about it, and we're starting a campaign, and I actually just made my character, and I read this to make it. This wraps up everything that I read last month. If you've read any of these, let me know your thoughts on them, and if you're thinking about reading them, let me know if this kind of helped you decide if you wanted to read it. Thanks for making it this far. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you on my next one. See you next time. All the books are fine. No books were damaged in the making of this video.